Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Lori Saitz. She is a nationally recognized stress eradication expert, award-winning author, speaker, broadcaster, trainer, writer, executive coach, and employee well-being consultant. As the founder and CEO of Zen Rabbit, a forward-thinking health and wellness company, she is dedicated to guiding business leaders towards creating and nurturing a healthier, more productive work environment. With a comprehensive background in wellness and strategies and employee engagement, her mission is to share easy to implement tools and techniques, not only to improve the well-being of employees, teams, but also contribute to their bottom line through the enhanced performance, improved morale, and increased employee retention and engagement. Lori is currently living a nomad life while cat-sitting in the States across the southeast of the U.S. You can often find her in her sanctuary, aka the weight room at the gym, and she also loves cupcakes, Thai food, and classic rock. There you go. Wow! So welcome, Lori Saitz. Hi.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy that you agreed to be on my podcast. I absolutely love what you do, Lori. And I was so excited because you really do contribute to the greater of everyone's good. And I love all your discussions and your forward thinking. And I thought I would just start off by just asking you, just share with everyone what you do, and then we'll get into the jokes of it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I call myself a wellness expert or a corporate well-being expert, but I've also been called a stress eradication expert.
Is that a thing? Can you go to school for that? I love that. It is now.
You could go to school for it. I don't know that you could get a degree in it, but sure.
It should be.
It should. Yeah. You know what? If they taught what I teach, now in school, people would be so much better off just throughout their life.
Absolutely. So, okay. So explain it all. I just want to know everything about you.
Okay, where to start? No, what I'm doing, when I go into corporate environments, and I've worked with entrepreneurs in the past as well, but when I start working with people, what I'm doing is I'm teaching them tools and techniques to help them manage the thoughts in their head. Because, a lot of people teach time management and as a way to be more productive. But what's really getting in the way, you could have all the time management tools you want, but the thoughts in your head are what are keeping you from really being focused. And
right.
So how do you manage those?
Absolutely. I love that, honestly. And I do think that I just have the worst thoughts in my head all the time. I think a lot of us do, if we're going to be really, admit it. Mm-hmm. And I love, I heard one, I don't even remember where I read it, but I started wearing a rubber band. And every time I had one of those little naggy negative thoughts, I would twang the rubber band and replace it with one of the positive ones. And I found it was almost like, when you're on a diet and you start by writing everything down that you're eating to be really conscious of what's going on. I felt like that was like a diet for my brain almost, just getting rid of all those negative thoughts. So I love that so much.
Well, the first step in that whole process is becoming aware. And that's what you were doing, is increasing your awareness of when you had those thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. So now you're using humor in that. So we always start off the podcast by asking everyone their favorite joke. Do you have one?
I don't really have a favorite joke. When I saw that you were going to ask me that question, I reached out to my brother and I said, I have a 14-year-old nephew. And I said, what's Henry's favorite joke? And he texted me back and he said, none that you want to repeat. So
it's not a clean podcast, but
no, he didn't even share any with me. I think they were just 14-year-old boy humor, stupid.
Yeah.
But I do have, I did find a couple.
I love
it. What concert only costs 45 cents?
What?
50 Cent featuring Nickelback.
Ridiculous.
All right. I picked that one because I am a Nickelback fan. I know people get a bad rap. Everybody loves to hate Nickelback, but
It's
I
true.
really like them, and I have seen them in concert, and they did a good concert, and they're Canadian, so there you go for you.
They are. Yeah. They get such a bad rap and they've done so well for themselves.
Yeah.
And they have this incredible record label here and anyway, yeah, I agree. I think they're people are really hard on them. Oh, I
I
hate
don't
it.
understand why, but I mean, a
No.
lot of it is
Well,
bro music, but it's kind of good to get into if you want to do a good workout or something.
absolutely. So how do you use humor in your day-to-day life with everything that you're doing?
Even though I don't like, I'm not a big joke teller, but humor is just part of who I am. Like sometimes
Yeah.
sarcasm, which, can be,
Yeah, it's
it's
fine.
a form of humor. But I'm always looking for how do I laugh? Like, I
Yes.
think it's just always been a part of who I am. And my
That's amazing.
brother, I
Yes.
mentioned my brother earlier. He has a very dry sense of humor. It's a little different, but he always cracks me up.
Dry sense of humor, like just that sarcastic sort of dry sense of humor, I love. I also find it's very like British almost,
Okay.
or that
Yeah.
sort of like bitchiness, but it's sort of like so enjoyable. Anyway, I do love a good little sarcastic ribbing every now and again, for
Yeah, I
sure.
can't I can't imagine going through life without a sense of humor. Like, are there people who don't have a sense of humor?
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of people who are afraid to use it, and especially in the corporate environment, and especially just bringing themselves to that. And I think it's definitely changing with this, with the generation Z or whatever coming
Mhm.
in. And I think they're demanding more of just, it being real for them and they're allowed to be themselves or they're, and the number one thing they do say is, I want to work for someone who sounds normal, like, who sounds like us. And I get that. And I feel like, but people do, they're so worried that, the impression that they're making and stuff like that. I think in the corporate world that some people, sort of compartmentalize where they're able to use it and where they're not. And I think that's a big part of it as well. And I don't know if you find that when you're coaching CC people.
Yeah, well, I think, when we're talking about employee well-being, being
Mm,
able to bring your whole self to everything you do and not
yeah.
having to compartmentalize yourself as this is my work self, this is my home self, this is my self with friends is it's so much healthier to be who
Yes.
you are all the time.
Yeah, it is way healthier. It doesn't make it easier, I don't think. And I think people are like, I think millennials and stuff are changing that, and I do think, they're so good at setting boundaries for themselves. "This is where I wanna be, this is how I wanna be treated," where I was always like, "What can I do to please you?" You know what I mean? It's just, ah! Yeah, so it's definitely and I'm always working on that, because it's just been it was so, like, don't speak until you're spoken to kind of upbringing. And I think it's very, very different now. There has to be a balance for sure. But do you find when do you work with individuals? Or are you working with corporations?
I'm working with corporate teams as well as I do some executive coaching as well.
And do you find when you're working with the teams that humor does lend itself to collaboration?
Absolutely. Because people want to work with people who are fun.
Yeah.
And when you use a sense of humor, first of all, you kind of break the ice so when people are just getting to know each other, it makes it easier to get to know people. And it's similar to being vulnerable. I just saw a post on LinkedIn today. Somebody was talking about Brene Brown and a quote that she had. And because she talks a lot about vulnerability
Yeah.
and about
That's the
how
thing.
people think vulnerability is such a great thing and they admire it in other people. When other people can be vulnerable, they attract people to them. But when it comes to being vulnerable yourself, people are very reluctant. So they admire when other people can be vulnerable, but they're
Right.
reluctant to do it themselves, right? And it's I think similar when you're talking about humor. Like I admire them for their sense of humor, but I'm not going to bring my sense of humor into the situation.
Right. And now when you are coaching, are you telling people to use humor? Is that a part of the stress
Eh,
relief or the stress factor or anything
That's
like
not
that?
really part of what I teach, but I just in who I am and how I present things,
Yeah.
I use it.
And can you give me an example of that? How you
An
would use
example
it?
of using humor.
Or
I
how
just
would
it just
you
comes out all the time. It's like I just kind of ad lib it, and a situation, somebody will say something and then I'll play off of what they said,
Yeah.
or I again,
Have
the
you have you
sarcasm.
ever had have you ever had an instance where maybe you've tried humor on something or you're teaching and humor comes out and it isn't received well?
Not that I recall that it wasn't received well.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess maybe intuitively I choose to work with people who would be open and receptive to it.
Yeah. And well, and sometimes we won't know that until we're working with someone, for sure. And do you find in terms of teams or in terms of your like individual coaching, it's different when you're dealing with individuals?
I think when you're dealing with individuals, a lot of times they are more willing to be vulnerable or to open up in a different way than when there is a team in a group setting.
Right.
Yeah. But
And
I
what do
do
you
have some exercises I do with teams to help them be more vulnerable when we're talking about gratitude. And I have an
yeah.
exercise that I have a team, have team members do that's designed to help them be more open to
So what do
receiving.
you do? Can you tell me? Can you
Yeah.
share?
So one of the exercises I love doing with teams is to have them, it's almost like a secret Santa, but it's a secret gratitude thing. So you
Oh,
need to have like a manager who's in charge to kind of mix things up, but everybody gets the name of somebody on the team and then they write them a gratitude note, like tell it like a note of appreciation, like this is what I appreciate about you. Or if they don't know the person very well, they're totally open to asking other people like what has, to see how they can, but then the note is this is what I've heard about you, or this is what I admire about you. And everybody needs to get one. That's why it needs to be kind of like a secret Santa. So nobody's left out. Everybody gets a
right.
note
Yeah,
from
of course.
someone.
That'd be horrible if you were left out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. That would be even worse than that would be worse than not doing the exercise at all. But yeah, but having people share their gratitude and not just, hey, I appreciate having you on the team, but what specifically do you appreciate about that person?
That's amazing. Like, it just being really detailed in that, I find
Hmm.
really helps a lot. I just think it's so different. It's so funny because my husband and I were talking the other day, and I was just like, back in my day, we knew when we were losers because, we didn't get the participation ribbons or we didn't get, the Valentine's because now with my kids,
Yep.
I have to fill out all the Valentine's. They give you a list of everyone's names. And I was like, back in my day, when you didn't get something, you knew.
Right.
Where
Exactly.
so,
Back in my day makes us sound old, but yes,
but
but
it's
it wasn't
true.
like that. It was you didn't always get picked for the team, or you didn't
No.
always get a Valentine's card.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny. But now we're all about it's good. I like the team collaboration. And I also like, really being specific and starting off like what do you appreciate about me? Have you ever done it the other way? This is what you suck at. No, I'm kidding.
I have not done that. There are plenty of people though that I could think of that I'd have a long list for, but no, I focus on the positive and the good and the compassionate because that's what
Yeah. That's
there's
what all
plenty of
this is about.
plenty of criticism and critical um handouts going
Yeah.
on in the world that we don't need to contribute to that.
Okay, so now you've started a company called the Zen Rabbit. And
Yes.
is that a part of the coaching as well? Or is that it is a part of the coaching?
Yeah, Zen Rabbit is the company.
Oh, it
Is
is.
Zen
Okay.
Rabbit's my company name. I actually started Zen Rabbit in 2003. Zen
Wow.
Rabbit, but Zen Rabbit has been through several iterations since then. So back in 2003, it was Zen Rabbit Baking Company,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
making a product called the gratitude cookie. that was based on a family recipe. And I had presented it as a way for businesses to say thank you to their clients and referral sources. And so the packaging was customized with the company's message and all of that. And that was a fantastic way to start my entrepreneurial journey. I ran that company for 11 years. I ran it into the ground. No, I ran it. I could never get it profitable.
Uh,
Yeah. The truth is I could never scale it the way I wanted to, and I could never get it to turn a profit. So I ended up shutting it down. And
yes.
then when I came back in my next entrepreneurial journey, I was teaching networking strategies and how to feel comfortable walking into a room full of people when you don't know anyone.
Oh,
That
I
was just
love that. Can we talk about that a bit?
sure.
Like, because I always break the ice with humor. Like, that's how
Uh-huh.
I, walk into a room. Did you find when you were teaching all that, were there certain techniques you were using or?
Yeah, so I mean the techniques are like first of all, everybody is afraid. So everybody thinks everybody else has it all together and
Yes.
they're the only ones who don't know anybody, who feel uncomfortable, who want to run away, and that's not true. And so yeah, it's just a matter of okay, then what can you do? Like having maybe a question, and if you're using
Yeah.
humor, then that's a great way to start a conversation.
I love that.
Or one of my favorite questions is, what are you excited about working on these days?
Oh, I
And
love
that opens the
that.
door for the person answering to answer either something business related, or they could tell you how much fun they're having coaching their daughter's softball team. Like, who knows? It just leaves everything wide open. And then you really get to know the person on a different level when they bring, it's not just like, because everybody's like, so what do you do?
I
That
hate
doesn't mean
that.
anything,
And I do
right?
ask that, and it does, or it's just like so loaded. I'd rather
Yeah,
say, "Are you a good person?" I don't know. Like it's
right,
just so, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Because almost everybody wants to get into a deeper conversation. Nobody likes this like surface level crap of what do you do? Nice weather, right? Great
yeah,
day for golf, right?
yeah.
Everybody wants to get into something more meaningful. So ask better questions.
I love that. So, what are you excited about?
What are you excited about working on these days?
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
like my mom is 81 and all her friends get together and I think they have a pool of, who died this week,
Oh,
you know.
geez. Yes.
That's what we're gonna be, yeah, in our 80s.
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
the
Uh huh.
conversations are very different. But I
Yeah.
do love
Yeah.
that, and that's a great way to bring humor into a conversation or just I really do enjoy that. And do you find when you're coaching now, like, are you bringing those strategies and techniques to people that they can
Uh,
use? Like, do you
if
find that your last businesses have entertained this one?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
everything I've learned in running, and even before running my own business, being in corporate and working for other people. And I always worked for smaller entrepreneurial type companies, even though, they might have had like 200 or 300 people, but it was an entrepreneurial spirit
Yeah.
within the companies that I always worked for.
Mhm.
But everything I've learned to this point, of
Right.
course, informs everything I do now.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely. How could it not?
Right.
Because we
Yeah.
become those people. And have you ever found like striking a balance between, being serious and being funny, like in those environments?
No, because so as much as I love using humor and it is part of who I am, if I have to default, I will go serious. It's
Right.
just what I do. Like I, I might have like when we were talking about compartmentalizing and being your
Hmm.
work self and your. I have to know somebody really well before I will be comfortable uh maybe and this has gotten easier as I've gotten older because I think
Yes.
it has to do with feeling more comfortable with who you are.
Yeah,
But when you're
absolutely.
younger and you don't necessarily know like what the protocol is, And
Yeah.
I am an introvert, which is a whole, I don't like using that term because there's so much baggage attached to it. But when I was teaching the networking strategies, it was for quiet people who are not going to be super gregarious walking into a room and be like, hey, here I am. And so that's because that's who I was. And so I would just sit back and kind of get a feel for the landscape before I jump in and start talking. And so I've always been the one who's maybe observing a little bit more before I start talking. But I would not call myself shy now, and anybody who knows me now, it is hard to believe I was shy as a kid. But so I think if there was the balance of humor and seriousness, I probably would be more on the serious side than the humorous side. Maybe just a
I
little.
and I would never guess that about you.
I
Just
know.
talking to you and getting to know you, you're so bubbly and
Yeah.
just and even we were talking about how you're living because you're living a nomad life.
Yeah.
And how do you keep your how does that work? I need to know.
How does that work? All right. So I belong to this membership site
Right?
that is called Trusted House Sitters. And people
Okay.
post when they need somebody, they want somebody to come and sit at their house, take care of their cats or their dogs or their rabbits or whatever. And people like me who are looking for they're looking for somewhere to go. It's a worldwide,
Yes.
opportunities are available worldwide. And so I apply and have a conversation with people, and they
That's
say, yes, come
amazing.
sit with my cats. I'm focusing mostly on cats. I love all animals, but I really love cats more. So
I think
that's
it
what I'm
would
doing.
scare me to go into a house with a dog I don't know.
I've
Like,
done 2 dog sits.
how was that? Good
They were
cuddles?
great
Okay.
dogs. One was a cat, one was a dog and a cat in a
Yeah.
studio apartment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was, and the dog was probably, I don't know, 50 pounds, 60 pounds. He wasn't a baby dog. Like, he wasn't a little dog.
Yeah.
Um, and the other one was a Dalmatian. It was a neighbor of a friend. And they were both really, really good dogs. But I don't want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and take the dog out and then pick up its poop after it. Like, gross.
No.
I don't want it. So
Yeah, I think the dogs own us, really.
cats are cats too, but cats are easier.
Yeah, no, for sure. Have you ever, like, gone to a house and you're like, "Oh, I'm babysitting a piglet?"
No, you know before
Okay.
you get there what you got. Yeah, you know what's coming up. But you
Uh,
don't always know what the condition of the house is. I mean,
right.
there was a house I went to in well, I don't even know if I should say the city, but who knows? The woman could listen and she would know.
Yeah, no worries, no
But
worries.
anyway, the house had been built in 1886, and I'm not sure it had been cleaned since.
Oh, no.
The room I was sleeping in was clean, but the rest of the house, she was kind of eccentric, and she,
Yeah.
I, the cat was
Well,
awesome, beautiful cat. And yes, in the review that she left for me, the house was cleaner when I got home than when I left. Yes, it was, because I had to. I couldn't work in that kitchen otherwise.
no. Wow, that's amazing. I just need a home. I need my own bed. I need to like know where I'm going to, and I do travel a lot with work, but
Mhm.
I couldn't do what you do. I give it to you. It's amazing.
A lot of people have said that to me, and I understand. Like, they want to sleep in their
Yeah.
own bed, they want to have their own kitchen stuff, but I've learned
Yeah.
so much.
Oh,
Like,
I bet.
so
Go
many
on.
cool kitchen gadgets. Like, when I park myself somewhere, when I finally settle somewhere, I must get an air fryer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Air fryers are awesome.
And they
They're
are.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
did not
Yeah.
know before. Yeah.
Yeah, all this new technology. Do you find because of technology, like people, especially in their leadership roles, I mean, I feel like it's never been, really easier to communicate and harder to connect. And especially and humor is such a great way to build those connections. Are you
Yes.
finding that it's like it's the culture is changing?
I am finding the culture is changing, and I would like it to change faster, because when I started getting into talking to corporate clients, and I had some business coaches and still have, and they'd be like, "Well, this is corporate. Like everybody is serious. Everybody is super busy, and that you get 10 minutes and you got to be straight to the point, and there's like no room for personalized like chit chat and stuff." And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I want to work in corporate or work with corporate. And what I do is so important to corporate. And so I'm not willing to like go, all right, well, I'm not going to go there. It's just a matter of finding people who get me or I get them. And if they're
Right.
so serious that they can't find any humor in anything, then that's probably not going to be a good fit for me, because
Fit.
I want to work with clients that I like.
Have you found a lot of those companies? Have you come across a lot of that?
What the
Where
ones
they're
that
so
aren't that are so
where they're so serious?
um I don't, again, like I think it's an attraction, like an energetic thing. So I attract people that are
Right.
more like me. People talk about, like, on LinkedIn, I see people posting all the time about the trolls and how people are popping into their DMs with like dating, like asking people to go on dates and stuff,
Really? I
especially
haven't had
women.
any of that.
I haven't
Why? Am I
either.
not good enough? What
I
is
know,
happening?
right? I have never gotten that either. And I'm like, well, I guess my energy just doesn't attract that. Now, I don't want it, and I'm happy to repel it. And I get messages of, from people like you, like people who we connect on the same level. Like, I'm so happy to connect with you, or I love what you're doing, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. Those are the kind of people I attract. And I think,
I also
being,
think, just going back for a second, like when you are in an atmosphere where there is no humor and it's, the atmosphere is heavy, I always think there is room for just change and growth, and it's baby steps, right?
yeah,
It could be as simple as, giving the bathroom a funny name, or like finding humor. It doesn't have to be people actually being funny. You can be finding humor within those environments to sort of bring out, make it a bit lighter for people that like to come to work, or,
yeah,
funny memes in the kitchen, or stuff like that. I think there's always ways that you can find humor in those places. And it can start with baby steps, and then, sort of growing that culture, maybe making people feel safe about it, and knowing that, they can be, and especially when people are in the C suite, you want to be self deprecating. You never want to punch down. You always want to, punch up, kind of thing. And it's just knowing that difference. But I always find, like, when I do go into corporate environments and there's a heaviness about it, there is always room, not maybe for, we're going to be funny now, but just like slight changes that you can bring in that are going to make all the difference.
yeah,
Even if it's like one day where you're doing, the amazing race around the office, or, or one person picks a game for the next team meeting that they're going to play before they all start, or, sharing a win or a loss, or, something that's, or asking people, what is the funniest thing that's ever happened? People love retelling their funny stories.
oh yeah, absolutely, they do. They
Yeah, so
do.
there's
And
definite ways, I think, to bring humor into those environments. And I think for me, it's more of a, yeah, I enjoy the challenge of it.
mhm, yeah.
And
It's interesting, as you were talking, I was thinking about, like, specific industries that have stereotypes about being uptight more than others.
right,
When I was doing the gratitude cookies, a lot of my clients, for a couple of reasons, came from financial services industry.
right.
And that's an industry, financial services and commercial insurance, that people don't think of as like, "Oh, those people are funny." They're not. Like they don't want to portray the image of being funny. Like, who was it? There was a comedian many years ago, and I can't think of who it was, but like, you don't have something like Bob's Bank. Like, it's not
Yeah,
serious enough. It has to be like Federal Bank of,
right.
Peoria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Louise.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But
No.
there are plenty of people who are funny who have great senses of humor, who work in those industries. It's just a matter of allowing them to bring it out.
Absolutely. And I do find people like in high stress industries are usually the funniest. And really like if you're talking like military or anything, they'll it become dark humor. Or
Mhm.
I find a lot of doctors have that dark humor as well. So it definitely depends on the industry, but I think there's always room for it. We can always have a lot of fun in spite of what's happening around us.
Yeah,
Or,
and
and we're even able to move forward in those serious events in spite of it, by using humor.
absolutely, I think it's required. I mean, we're talking about stress relief and employee wellness and well-being, and having a sense of humor is essential for that. Who was it that wrote that book? Was it Norman Cousins? What that about humor for healing?
I don't know.
It was like really old. I want to say like 60s or 70s.
Oh, I have
Um,
no idea. I
and
don't know.
he was healing from like a life-threatening illness or something like that, and he was watching funny movies
Oh, okay.
as a way to build his immune system, which there's science and research behind
Oh, yeah,
how
absolutely.
humor supports and builds immune system and helps heal the body
Yeah.
and the
Well,
mind.
how great do you feel when you've laughed so hard you cried? You feel amazing,
Right?
right? Because
And
of
you know
all
what
the
the funny thing is
endorphins.
that I've started doing is when that happens, in that moment, I kind of catch myself and I just feel so much gratitude for it. It like
Yes.
captures it so that when I
Yeah.
go back and think about that memory again, I get back into that feeling of gratitude again.
I love that. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I find, Lori, that you really do pick up on things because I read on LinkedIn, I was lurking you, um, where you posed a question, does spirituality belong in the workplace?
Mhm.
And that's such a great question because I think religion and spirituality are way different. I
Agree.
don't know if you see them. Do you see them differently?
Absolutely. They're not the same.
Okay. And so how would you define it?
Religion is a structured institution. Spirituality is who we are as humans. We all have a soul and a spirit, and that spirituality is that connection to whatever you want to choose to believe, whether it's your higher self or a god or whatever you want to call it, but that higher version, the maybe the best version of
Yeah.
yourself, that highest version of yourself, that is spirituality. Bring that into the workplace and allow people to be that.
Ah, yes, even if they're funny.
Yes, that's part of who they are.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's great. I love that question. I was like, yeah, can we? I don't know. But
Well,
if
and it
it's all
actually
about bringing your authentic self to work, then we're talking about the same thing.
right. And when you are in that place and when you're practicing, I talk about using meditation. Like you look at some of the highest performing business leaders in the world, and what they have in common is that they practice meditation and they attribute a lot of their success to their meditation practice. And when you are doing something like that, practicing meditation, whatever, in whatever form, and that's a whole other conversation, but
Yes.
you are connecting then to your higher self. And when you're doing that, and it was Thomas Edison used to do this, um, he would you're connecting to a different level of creativity. And so it allows you to be more creative, more innovative, more focused. Those are things that businesses want their people to bring to the
Yeah.
job. Right. And so by connecting to by allowing spirituality in that way and allowing somebody to connect with their higher purpose or with the universe, whatever, however you want to define it, that's how they become more creative and more focused and more ultimately more productive, ultimately more profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a domino effect. It all leads
Mhm.
to one, for
Yeah.
sure. And have you like in your own life, like in all your travels and everything, have you found like humor really connects you with new people?
It does. It does. And it connects me with my sanity because some things have happened. I'm thinking specifically of an incident in Wilmington, North Carolina, where my car broke down in like 6 lanes of traffic. And you have to you could choose to panic, or you could choose what I did, which was to find gratitude in the situation and also humor. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, how am I going to frame this in some way that's going to make me laugh about it, and not just laugh about it in like 3 years? What about right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing to do. It's not easy, but if you can make that switch, I talk about putting a spin on what's stressing you. So,
Mhm.
and I find that can really help. Yeah.
And it takes practice. And the more you do it, the more you
Mhm.
practice it, the more easily it comes to you. And then the more naturally it just shows up, even whenever the stressful situation shows up, you just
Yeah.
automatically switch to gratitude and humor.
And I love all the little things we've said because nothing is without each other. Like it all leads to the same thing. So, have you personally experienced like a lot of benefits because of humor and laughter and levity?
Yes, I think you can get, what's that saying about catching more flies with honey, whatever. I don't know. I don't want
I think
flies,
it's
but
bees.
I don't want to catch any flies, but I do like honey. Uh no, it just, it makes life more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And because when you can use humor, you can, how to say this in a way, like you can get more stuff. Like people will do nice things for you when you make them laugh, or when you, because humor also is a very good way to make you more relatable to other people.
Yeah.
And so when you are more relatable, people are more willing to do things for you, like upgrade you at a hotel, or
Yeah. Humor definitely makes us kinder to one another. That's
yes,
for sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and
I love
it's
that.
reciprocated.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It really does. It gets people's guards down.
right,
You're
right.
right. So,
Yeah,
which is a
yeah,
nice place to be.
absolutely.
Okay, so I'll have to say, like, just your energy is amazing. I always like to end it on what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you. Do you have a story
Okay,
you'd like to tell?
I do. I
Yeah.
love this question. All right. So a long time ago, I was working for a marketing and communications agency. We had maybe 15 people in the office, and we were all very close. In fact, we are still, a lot of us, like still really close friends. It's amazing that this came out of this. But it was April Fool's Day, and I was our creative director was going out to lunch, and I don't even know where I came up with this, but somewhere I don't know that I thought of it myself, but Tim goes out to lunch. This was back in the day when we still had those pink notepads, like somebody called and
Oh,
you write
yes.
down the little note, remember
Yeah.
those? Yeah.
Write down the number.
Yeah. So, like while you were out, so and so
Yeah.
called, here's their number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had one of those, and I wrote Anna. No, what was it? Anita Lyon called, and here's the number. And I left the number. And Tim comes back from lunch. He sees the note on his desk. He calls the number and he goes, Anita Lyon, please. And the woman on the other end of the phone goes, I think someone's playing an April Fool's joke on you. You've called the Sacramento Zoo. He came storming down the hall and he's like, who left this on my desk? And to this day, he's never gotten me back for that. He still tries. Every April Fool's, I'm on full alert because I know he's coming for me. And
Oh,
this was
that's
like 25
great.
years ago.
Oh
But
my gosh.
I can't believe he said it exactly that way, too. Like he could have called and said, I'm calling to speak with Anita Lyon. He said, I need a lion, please. I need a lion, please. It cracks me up every time I think about that story.
Yeah, that's great.
I got
That is
him. I
great.
got
That's
him.
yeah, you did.
There you go. Next time it's the next April Fool's. It's several months away, but write it down.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love it. You have like so much great information, so many great stories. I love how you're using humor in your practices and how you're bringing it all into the wellness and your meditation and gratitude and all those incredible things and how you're helping so many people, which is
Thank you.
incredible. So how do people find you, Lori?
My website is zenrabbit.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time.
Oh, yes, we are. Thank you so much for being a guest on Humor in the C-Suite.
Thanks for inviting me, Kate.